I'm here to give you all a very about smart grids. Has a tech world things and people are talking about smart grids. So I will be with you for the next 40 to 45 minutes, telling you what is all about smart grid and do we have smart grids in India? If so, where? And what are the drawbacks of smart grid? So these are some of the things which we are going to see today. Well, before moving on into a smart grid, we shall see what is all about an electrical grid. Once we know what is an electrical grid, it's very easy for us to convert an electrical grid to a smart grid. Yes. So we shall see first what is all about electrical grid. Fine. So an electrical grid is where the network is being connected located. Let's take the nuclear power plant or the hydroelectric power plant or the thermal power plant. Any process who supply the electricity, yes, you call them as the power plants, right? So an electrical grid is where the electricity delivery is happening from the producers to the consumers. The consumers are us, right? Anybody who consumes the electricity, we call this as consumers. So on the whole, if you look into an electrical grid, there are some four essential components which are required and which we need to look into. The first one is the power station. The power station is where the nuclear power plants or the thermal power plants or the hydroelectric power plants are being located. Often it is being located outside the heavily populated areas just to avoid all the pollution issues. The second important component is the electrical substation. The electrical substation will help in stepping up or stepping down the voltage. So all this stepping up and stepping down of voltage is done with the help of transformers, because we know that the electrical producers, they produce in the range of 265 to 275 kilowatts to megawatts, which is really very huge. But in our home, we consume only 230 volt to 415 volt, which is very, very less. So we need to somehow step down the voltage, right? So this is done with the help of the transformers being located at the electrical substations. The third important component is the transmission. So all the transmission lines which we see while we are passing through the car or by the bus is called the electrical power transmission. So here we are transmitting AC voltage rather than DC. So though we have HVDC available in India, most of the times we prefer AC rather than DC, because when we transmit AC to a longer distances, it is having its own advantages rather than the DC. The fourth important component is the electrical power distribution. So obviously we have a transformer here also to step down the voltage, and that voltage only reaches the consumers, which is nothing but us. Yes, so all the voltage which reaches us is being done by these steps. So we have the power stations, electrical substations, electrical power transmission, and electrical power distribution. So this is a common viewpoint on the electrical grid. Now we are going to talk about smart grid. So how am I going to bring smartness to these regions? This is what we are going to discuss. Well, what is a smart grid then? So when can we call a person smart? So that's a question which we need to know, right? So when can we call a human being smart? When they are proactive, right? When they're able to react to the conditions well, right? So when they are resilient, when they are diligent. So we have certain conditions with us where we call a normal human being a smart person, right? So we are going to inculcate all those smartness in this electrical grid. But human beings are those where we have where we have life. But when we talk about an electrical grid, how about to bring a smartness in an electrical grid? So what is the techniques or what are the technologies technology is to so already I have seen a session taken by one of the men of change about Internet of Things. So I hope all the participants are having a good knowledge about Internet of Things. So we are trying to inculcate an information infrastructure in the electrical grid in order to make it as a smart grid. So the short answer of how to bring about a smart grid is trying to inculcate an information infrastructure in an electrical grid will make an electrical grid become a smart grid. So we are trying to make the electrical grid smart and robust. So how to bring about it? Where are the changes, where the changes has to be made? So these things only we are going to discuss. Well, so as we have seen already, these are the four important parts which we have in the vertical structure of the electrical grid: generation, transmission, distribution, and consumers. So we are going to bring about intelligence in each and every part. There are a lot of advantages and drawbacks in bringing about the smartness in the consumer side. Because once you bring it on the consumer side, all the consumers should understand the information infrastructure. Then only they can easily bring about the smart grid concept. Yes, so we have some AMR meters and AMI meters available on the consumer side so that they can visualize the bidirectional flow of electricity. I will explain to you more about AMR and AMI in the upcoming slides. Secondly, with regards to the distribution side, we know the distribution can take place either by AC or by DC. So we are trying to bring about some kind of smart meters on the distribution side to see how much of electricity is being flown out and flown in. Secondly, third, we are going to concentrate on the transmission and on the generation side also. So before moving on into it, we will just look into the evolution of the smart grid and we will see where we have to concentrate more to bring our electrical grid smart. This is a slide showing you the evolution of the Indian national grid. In the early 60s, we had totally 5 different regions in the Indian grid: northern, eastern, western, northeastern, and southern. So we had totally 5 different regions in the early 60s. By October 1991, the northeastern and the eastern grids, they were connected together. So both the northeastern and the eastern grids, they were operating at one single frequency, right? And as we move to the March 2003, the western and the eastern along with the northeastern, they were interconnected. By the August 2006, the north and the eastern grids were connected together. Thereby, we had totally 4 grids: northern, eastern, western, and northeastern. So the meaning of all this is we have totally 4 different frequencies. In the northern, we have a particular frequency. In eastern, we have another frequency. In western, we have another. And in the northeastern, we have another frequency. By 31st December 2013, all the regions were interconnected together. So we now have one nation, one grid, and one frequency. The reason why we moved into this concept of central grid is we know that in 2012, we had the issue of blackouts. I think around July 2012, we had these blackouts. So what is meant by a blackout? So for 2 days continuously, there was a lot of power cuts happening. We were not able to restore the grid. The reason is because what happens when there is an excess of load trying to feed into an electrical grid is when the amount of load estimation is above the predicted load, yes, there is going to be a dip in the frequency. So once there is a dip in the frequency, the generators which are connected to the power plants should turn on automatically and it should try to feed in the enough amount of frequency so that your grid is stabilized. If this is not happening, automatically it will lead to the blackout. So a blackout is a condition which needs to be avoided because there was a continuous power cut and we took 2 days of time to restore it completely, right? Because there was one region who was continuously taking up the power supply than the predicted power supply. That's the reason we had this blackout. So to avoid this blackout, once we come to this one nation, one grid, and one frequency, such kind of conditions can be avoided. So this is the overall evolution of the Indian national grid. So starting from the 5 different regions, we have come down, and now we have only one grid, one nation with one frequency. So electricity is really a big challenge in the India because the estimated demand of India is 900 gigawatts by 2032, which is almost 4 times more than the estimated. So in order to overcome this, we are entering more into a renewable energy sources. But then when we enter more of renewable energy sources also, this frequency is again going to cause a big issue because I can have a solar plant. Okay, so it is 900 gigawatts by 2032, which is almost 4 times than the power generation which we have now. Right, so in order to compensate this, we are going for the renewable energy sector, as I've told you. But just like that, we cannot inculcate a solar power plant or the wind power plant and feed it into the electrical grid. So once you do that, what happens? Obviously, the frequency becomes an issue. So though we have more of renewable energy sector bringing into the picture, we also have to concentrate on the frequency just to avoid all these blackouts. There's a condition called brownouts also happening. So this brownouts will be only for a less period of time. And this brownouts is happening mainly because of the voltage sag or the swell in the power system. So voltage sag is nothing but a dip in the voltage. So in the English word sag represents a dip, right? So a dip in the voltage, which is happening for less than 1 minute, will cause an voltage sag, right? Similarly, there's something called voltage swell. This voltage swell is something where there is going to be an improvement in the voltage. There is an increase in the voltage just for less than 1 minute. So that is going to cause a lot of issues in the frequency. So we also have to concentrate on the voltage sag and the swell because that is indirectly touching our frequency. And once the frequency is being touched or caused any issues, what happens? Obviously, all these brownout conditions and the blackout condition happens. So though a lot of renewable energy comes into picture, we always have to look into the frequency. So in the traditional power grid, we have only this one-way flow of electricity. We have a centralized bulk generation wherein the entire amount of electricity is being transmitted via the transmission and the distribution, and it ultimately reaches us. We are relying heavily on the coal and as well as on the oil. The automation is completely limited. The situation awareness is also completely limited. We don't know exactly what is happening on the transmission and on the distribution side. Right? We think that there are only 1,000 houses who are benefited. But ultimately, if there are going to be a lot of houses, trying to come into the picture on the distribution side, it is affecting the frequency. Right? So we don't know exactly what is happening on the distribution side. The transmission side doesn't know what's happening on the distribution side. The distribution side doesn't exactly know what is all about the generation and how much amount of power is being generated. So the limited situation awareness is what is there in the traditional power grid. The consumers, they also lack the data to manage the energy use. So somehow, instead of one-way flow of electricity, we need to go for the two-way flow of electricity. This two-way, you should have both the flow of information also. The consumer should know about the generation, and the generation side also should know about the consumers. Right? So this two-way flow of information can happen when we try to bring about AMI into the picture. This communication infrastructure is essential in the electrical grid to bring about more smartness. Fine. So what are the essential features of the smart grid? The first one is remote control and automation. Here, this is where the entire Internet of Things comes into picture. You are able to control a meter remotely. We know that there are a lot of drawbacks behind this, but this automation is for sure required in a smart grid. You should be able to control any meters remotely. If you are not able to control, at least you should be able to look into the readings. That will help us for the next kind of automation. So remote control and automation is an essential feature of smart grid. It should comprises everything starting from the generation to the consumption side. So we should have like a SCADA type of architecture where we are able to see completely what happens, how much more electricity is there, whether there is any voltage sag or any dip. So there should be a complete architecture just like the SCADA in order to visualize the generation to the consumption side. The grid should be more flexible and it should be interactive. What is the meaning of being more flexible and interactive? Whenever there is a voltage sag happening, which is less than 1 minute, I'm talking about everything less than a minute, the grid should automatically react to the voltage sag and it should compensate the frequency. So compensating to the frequency, there are a lot of devices available. You can make use of a capacitors. You can see all these things in the substations available, right? So you need to compensate to the frequency. So the grid should be flexible enough to react to the voltage sag within a minute. That's where the big challenge arises because the time is very, very crucial, right? We're not talking about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's less than a minute. So that grid should be even more flexible and it should be interactive. Advanced management of the grid, sustainable, reliable, and economic manner. So all this should be done with the help of meters. So we shall see what are the meters available in the market in order to establish this kind of smart grids. So now we will look into a bigger perspective of the smart grid by knowing some terminologies, right? So we shall look into some of the important terminologies in the smart grid. When I say distributed generation, next time when we talk about distributed generation, you should really know what is all about distributed generation. So in the next slide, I shall give you a brief overview of certain words which we have to know when we hear the news about the smart grid anywhere, right? Okay, so the first one is the renewable energy. So we know renewable energy is becoming a talk, and most of us are aware about the solar power plants or the wind, right? Or the biothermal energy, geothermal energy. All this comes under renewable energy, where we are just depending upon the nature and we are getting the solar from the sun, and then we are trying to utilize it. We are not harming the nature, right? We are not producing any kind of byproducts, just like the coal or the thermal power plant produces. So all these comes under the renewable energy. The second thing is integrating renewable. When you say integrating renewable, let's assume I have a solar power plant established in my house, right? I'm running completely all the appliances in my house with the help of the solar. Then I'm not finding any issue. But let us assume my house requires around some 200 units of power, okay? And I'm taking 100 units from the solar and I require remaining 100 from the EB. Right, then what I have to do, I have to somehow integrate this renewable right into the EB. We call this as two-way metering, where we can transmit the power to the EB and we can get the power also from the EB. Okay, so you can send the power to the grid, right, for which the government will pay to us. So integrating renewable is really a big challenge and we need to concentrate on it. The third one is all about distributed generation. Distributed generation is where an electrical grid has both the conventional as well as the non-conventional sources of energy. So both the renewable and the non-renewable energy resources will be there in this kind of distributed generation. The next one is all about electrical vehicle integration. So nowadays we are talking a lot about EVs. So when we try to integrate this EV vehicles, charging station again into the grid, we need to talk about the frequency, right? Just like that, a EV charging station cannot make use of the electrical grid power and they cannot charge their EV vehicles. It's again going to bring a lot of problems to the frequency of the grid. So electrical vehicle, once we are trying to integrate in our electrical grid, we have to look into the frequency, voltage, and other stuffs also. Just like that, we cannot make our power station, get the power from the grid. That's going to really cause a lot of drawbacks. Flexible integration, cyber security, right? So when I say I want to control a device remotely, how about the security? What happens to the security? Because all these are sensitive data. As I mentioned already, within a minute, I have to control a particular device. So when I say within a minute, it is very, very less. And what happens if the data transmitted by that particular meter is not smart? Exactly an voltage hack hasn't happened, But my smart meter is telling that an voltage sag has happened. What will happen? Right. So this cybersecurity really plays a bigger role when you talk about smart grid, as I'm controlling all the devices remotely. Okay. Even if there is a small mismatch in the data, it is going to cause a lot of damage. When I say energy storage, we know that electric vehicle runs on batteries. So we are charging with the help of the charging station, and let us assume that we have to make use of the batteries in the electric vehicles. And for that, we need to have some kind of energy storage mechanism. So again, we will be relying only on the grid, right? So all these factors has to be considered when we make our grid smart. Demand response. When we response, the consumers, generator, transmitter, distributors, all of them are interconnected and all know what is happening exactly. So the generation will know, generation side people will know how much amount of power is really required on the consumer side. So this is called demand response. Only on that particular demand, the generation people, they are going to give you that power. That's called DR, demand response. Then dynamic reactive power. There is two different types of power which we should know. One is the real power, another one is the reactive power. Real power is something which we are consuming. Reactive power is something which is helping the real power to consume. Yes, that's the difference between real power and reactive power. So you cannot measure the reactive power. It is just like the pushing force, right? When we talk about voltage, we say the pushing force of the electrons is called an voltage. Similarly, a reactive power is something which you cannot consume, but it will help the real power to consume. That is the difference between reactive power and real power. So reactive power is also essential in the smart grid, because only that will help the real power to consume. So we also have to consider the reactive power once a smart grid is considered. Then wireless communication. So obviously wireless communication comes into picture. Though wired communication is much more better than the wireless communication, when you say transmitting over the longer distances, we prefer wireless rather than wired. Though wired is secure and wired, no, they don't have all these cybersecurity issues. But when we say about transmitting over a longer distances and controlling a remote part, we prefer wired. We prefer wireless rather than the wired. Distributed automation, smart meters, flexible transmission, wide area measurement, substation automation, home energy monitoring. So these are some of the important terminologies which we have in the smart grid. So what are the various functions which we have in the smart grid? The first one is self-healing. The meaning of self-healing. What do we understand from self-healing? The English word, what do you understand is, it heals by itself, right? So similarly, when there is any problem occurring in an electrical grid, it should have the ability to self-heal by itself. Once it self-heal by itself, it should automatically submit the report to the generator side or to the transmission distributor or to the consumers. That it depends upon the utility market, and that completely depends upon the person who is keeping this idea of smart meters. So self-healing is a major important thing which a smart grid should do. Consumer participation. All the consumers should get aware about the smart grids, and they really play a very important role in the smart grid. Resist the attack. So before an attack occurs, it should have the ability to understand. So self-healing is something where the problem occurs and then the smart grid heals by itself. Resist the attack is something where before the attack itself, the smart grid is able to react. This is what we call it as proactive, right? So a resist attack can be compared something to a proactive. Accommodate generate options and enable the electricity market, optimize the assets, because asset management really plays a big role. Just like that, we cannot touch the frequency and disturb the frequency, because in the consumer side, you have a lot of sensitive applications. It can be either be a hospitals where we are connecting lights, or whether the operation might be going on. So once we touch the frequency, and if it affects the devices, the UPS also might get affected in the hospitals. So all these sensitive applications has to be considered, and the assets has to be optimized before bringing the smart grid into the picture. High quality power, enable high penetration of intermittent generation sources. We call this as IGS. IGS represents intermittent generation sources. Intermittent generation sources are something like our renewable energy sector, where we don't have power throughout the day, but only during the required period. So when we talk about wind, we cannot give the commitment that we get enough amount of wind power throughout the year. When we talk about solar, I cannot give the commitment that throughout the day I get enough amount of solar energy. That's not happening, right? So all this comes under intermittent generation sources. So my smart grid should also have the ability to incorporate these intermittent generation sources. So how will my smart meter look like, and what makes my meter smart? What are the essential functionalities my smart meter should have? The first one is solid state. Secondly, communication. It should have the ability of two-way communication. Obviously, all the electronics are under the glass. It should support the two-way communication flow of electricity as well as the information. Okay, both the information and the electricity should be two-way, and it should be supported by the smart meter. So how can I say that my electricity is two-way? I have told you the example with the solar panel, right? If I have the solar panel installed in my house, I can give the supply to the electrical grid, and I can also get the supply from the electrical grid. If I produce a lot of solar power, right, I can feed into the electrical grid as well. So there is a two-way communication of electricity as well as information. What is all about information? I am telling the electrical grid that I have supplied 100 units of power to the electrical grid. So you need to pay that much amount to me because I'm giving the supply to the electrical grid. I hope you can understand, right? I'm getting the supply from the electrical grid as well as I'm giving the supply to the electrical grid. So this two-way of communication happens for both the information as well as for the electricity. So that smart meter should have that ability. Then it should be proactive. So when we say proactive, it should have the ability to react to the conditions before it occurs. So all the resist attack comes under proactive condition. So my smart meter should have the ability to satisfy all these criteria: solid state, communication, electronics under glass, two-way, and proactive. And my smart metering environment should also be supporting the various stakeholders. So stakeholders, in sense, they are the people who are trying to consume the power, right? So all the consumers comes under the stakeholders, right? So smart meters are installed on the consumer side only. When we talk about the generation, transmission, and distribution, we have some other meters installed. Smart meters is exclusive only for the consumers. So now we shall talk about AMR meters and AMI meters. AMR is called automated meter reading. AMI is called automated metering infrastructure. I represents infrastructure, R represents reading. Okay. So a smart meter measuring the electricity remotely controls the supply and cutoffs when necessary. It is called as automated meter reading. So all your automated meter reading will be only for the one-way communication. So in order to upgrade it to the two-way, we go for AMI technology. So in the AMI, completely we will be focusing only on the Internet of Things, where we are going to sense the voltage or the current depending upon the stakeholders. And via the wireless communication medium, you are going to reach a particular cloud. And from the cloud, we will be able to predict the value. So this cloud, obviously, it is going to be private, okay? Because once you move into the public cloud, we cannot ensure security. So we are moving into the private cloud, we are pushing the data. So all the smart meter manufacturing companies, they have their own clouds available. So all the sensed values will be sent via the wireless medium to the cloud. So in the cloud, you can look into the various voltage sag and dip which is happening. And from there, you will be easily able to predict the data. So all the prediction takes place with the help of the data available in the cloud. So once you move into the public cloud, you need to ensure that the data transmitted is secure and there is nobody else present in between trying to change the value. So this smart metering process has these steps available. The first one is the smart meters installed on the consumer side, right? Secondly, we are trying to make use of a LAN network. We call LAN as local area network. Here, we can either make use of the PLC, which is called power line communication, or you can use point-to-point or mesh network or a hybrid network. So these are some of the networks available in the local area network in order to transmit your value from the smart meters to the wide area networks or to the cloud remotely. Okay, here we are talking more with a wired communication rather than wireless. So when I say wireless, from the smart meter, we can transmit it directly to the cloud. If you are taking wireless, if you are going for the wired network, it is better to go with these steps of LAN network, collectors, WAN network, and then into the application. So all the smart meters can go either with the wired or with the wireless as the technique which I have mentioned to you. So in the LAN, we can go for these techniques. When we move into the collector, so what will a collector do? The collectors will tend to get the values from each and every LAN networks. So each and every LAN networks will present in each and every house, right? So that point-to-point network will help us to move into the next step of collectors. In the collectors, you have repeaters, you have the various substations trying to get the values from each and every house. For example, in my street, if there are around 50 houses having a smart meters, okay, all the 50 meters will be interconnected to particular repeater which is located at the remote end. So that repeater will have the 50 houses smart meter value. And now with the help of that repeater, I will be moving into the next step called as WAN network, which is wide area network. I can either make use of telephony or to the broadband or RF or fiber, right? I can make use of these techniques and transmit that 50 houses data value into a remote application. I hope you can get my point. Okay, so under 50 houses length, when you get the data, it can either be a point-to-point or a mesh network or a PLC. It can be anything, right? So the collectors also, out of these four, it can be anything. And once you get the value, you can send it into a remote application. That application can either be an outage management or a MDMA. MDMA is called meter data management access, billing, or for the DA. So depending on the application, we can fix which LAN to prefer, which collector to prefer, and which WAN network you have to prefer. So this is one way of smart metering process with a wired network. If you talk about wireless, as I mentioned, directly push the data into the cloud, and from that you will be able to go either for the billing or for the outage or for the MDMA management. So this picture gives you an idea of how the advanced metering infrastructure system will look like. So let's take a smart meter installed in a single family house. Okay, you are pushing the value directly into the utility office, which is wireless. If you're going for the wired, what you need to do? I need to push the data into a repeater and then send it into the utility office, right? So either you can push the value directly into the utility office, or you can send it into the communication device on the utility pole, and then the value can be transferred into the utility office. Here also you can go for the repeaters, right? So all this is completely dependent on the cost. Yes, when you want to push the value directly into the utility office, obviously the cost is higher. But when you want to push into the communication device on the utility pole, the price is a bit lesser than the first methodology. So it all depends only on the cost and in the infrastructure. So to how much extent we are able to afford for my smart meter. With that rate only, we can decide whether we go for these kind of methodologies of transmitting our value into the utility office. Fine. So when you talk a lot about these smart meters, what is exactly the drawbacks which are happening? So we know the drawbacks is for sure it is going to be the security, safety, privacy, and health. When we are trying to inculcate a lot of smart meters, there are a lot of scientists talking about how about the health? Is there any issue that it's going to affect the human being? So it is difficult for us to compromise a human being, a normal consumer who is not having a very good intellectual knowledge on all about smart grid. trying to compromise on the safety, privacy, and health. Many people are telling it is not safe, not healthy, it's not private, it's not green. But then when we look into the manufacturing of the smart meters, it is not that it's not green. Actually, all these are the negative points which we get on the smart grid, because people tell, when you bring an information infrastructure into my house, it is going to affect us. But it is not the condition. It is not so, right? Fine. So the major problem obviously is the privacy, because we cannot give the assurance that this is the amount of voltage which my house has consumed to the utility office directly. There can be some person, intruder, who is trying to change the values. There can be some intruder who is telling that a voltage sag has happened when it hasn't happened. Right. So all this intrusion has to be avoided, and cyber security has to come more into the picture when we bring everything as a smart grid in India. So in India, when we have a lot of smart meters installed, for sure we have to concentrate on the cybersecurity side. Fine. So this is the picture giving a very brief overview on the various technology areas, hardware, softwares, and the implementation areas. The first one, wide area monitoring control. So in this wide area monitoring control, as I've told you already with an example, in a single house, we need to have the sensor units and a SCADA type of network on the generation and the transmission side. So a phasor measuring units will tell you how much amount of power is being consumed and which phase is under issue. So we know that we have three different phases, R, Y, P, right? So all these phases will be taken care with the help of these phasor measuring units. And how, if there is any issue in one phase, that has to be automatically reported to the SCADA. So SCADA, we call it a supervisory control of the data acquisition system. So that is an overall picture which tells us whether there is any issue in any phase, or whether there is any sag or any swell happening exactly. That SCADA network is where you can visualize the entire generation, transmission, and distribution side. Okay, that's a picture. It's a pictorial representation where you can visualize everything. Wide area management system, wide area adaptive protection control and automation, wide area situation awareness. So these are some of the terminologies which we have in the substation side in order to inculcate more of automation. So this implementation area is completely for the distribution as well as, for the generation as well as for the transmission areas. The second important technology area is information and communication technology integration. Here, we are talking more on the consumer perspective. So when we talk more on the consumer perspective, obviously the PLC or the WiMAX, RF mesh network, routers, relays, everything comes into picture. When we talk about the software side, we are concentrating more on the enterprise resource planning software and the customer information system. So all these are like a report generating mechanism where it will generate a report for you and it will tell you that this is what has happened for you in the smart, this is what has happened in this month in your smart meter. Okay, so all this is like a report generation mechanism where you can plan the enterprise before itself, and with regards to it, the consumer information system will be told to you. Then we have the renewable and the distribution integration. So if there is going to be more of renewable energy coming into the picture, my power conditioning equipment should understand that the renewable energy has come into the picture of the electrical grid and it should work accordingly. Okay, so there are a lot of insulators available, right? When you talk about the transmission, I don't know whether I'm going out of the picture, but when we install these smart meters, the power equipments which are supporting the electrical grid should not be disturbed. Okay, the lot of power conditioning equipments are present in a normal traditional grid, enhancing the frequency and supporting the enough amount of voltage. So that should not be disturbed when you try to bring the smart meters into the electrical grid. So this is all about the renewable and the distributed generation integration. We call this as DGs. DGs represent distributed generation. So all the energy management system and the geographic information system should be considered when we are bringing this renewable and distributed generation into the picture. With regards to the transmission enhancement, we have this FACTS devices and HVDC coming into picture. HVDC stands for high voltage DC transmission. So as I've told you in the first slides, we prefer more of AC than in the DC because AC has its own advantages and DC has its own drawbacks. But we do have HVDC in India, and we go more of AC because of its advantages. As I've told you, you can transmit over a longer distances and the losses also will be very less. And the installation cost is also a big heavy for the DC than the AC. So in the transmission enhancement, we need to check whether we are having DC or AC when we install the smart meters, because the networks should be stable enough and the recovery system would have been designed for the AC. And when you try to install that for the HVDC transmission line, obviously everything gets collapsed. So that smart meter, whether it is installed for HVAC or for the HVDC, should be considered before the particular installation happens. So with regards to the distribution grid management, we know there are many relays and switches and capacitors available, and all those components should be safeguarded when you are trying to bring DGs into the picture and smart grid into the picture. So this smart sensors should not affect my relays or the sensors which is already there into the system, so that no, my outage management is safe and the workforce management is also safe. And with regards to the AMI meters, we have these meter data management system, MDMS, available. And with regards to the electrical vehicle charging infrastructure, that electrical vehicle charging infrastructure can go either for grid to vehicle or vehicle to grid. So just like that, we cannot make our EV station, charging station into the grid. We always have to check, and then only we have to install just to avoid all these blackouts. One or two charging station is not going to cause an issue, but when we see in future a lot of electrical vehicles coming into picture, obviously there will be a lot of charging stations. And so that installation should be taken care of before trying to get anything from the grid or before trying to feed something into the grid. So with regards to the customer side management, the dashboards are available, which will give you a clear picture of exactly what is happening. So this is what we call it as a SCADA. The dashboard is the exact word in which how we can define a SCADA. So SCADA is available on the generation side, on the transmission side, as well as on the distribution side, to give you an overall picture of what is happening behind the smart grids and how the smart meters are installed. Yes, so this is insight which I thought I can give you about a smart grid. So ultimately, in a nutshell, when I say a smart grid, you need to have a two-way flow of communication, two-way flow of data, right? That two-way can be both for the electricity as well as for the data. So you're trying to inculcate an information infrastructure in a normal electrical grid so that you can bring about a smart grid. That smart grid can be done with the help of a smart meters or an AMR or with the help of AMI. So we have seen AMR stands for automated meter readings, and I indicates the infrastructure. So to bring about an information infrastructure in a normal electrical grid, obviously we have to go either for the wired connection or for the wireless connection. So it is better to go for the Internet of Things technology, so that you can bring more about these techniques inculcating in the smart meters. So we should know a little about IoT to bring these smart meters into the picture of electrical grid, right? So wired, wireless, or transmitting the value directly to the utility office or communicating it via the communication ports, it all depends only on the price. So to how much we can afford to the smart meters, that will help us to predict which of these technologies has to be preferred. When you go for the hybrid technique, we have that own price. When you go for the point-to-point or when you go for the mesh technique, that has its own price. So this is the overall picture about smart grid, which I wanted to tell you. And if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Okay, I think thank you so much for joining in for today's session. We'll see you again next week with another session going and exploring the newer topics. So thank you so much, and I hope to see you all soon.